Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey everybody, welcome into episode 92. This episode is a little bit different. I wanted to take us in a different direction in this talk because for a lot of the podcast, we've talked about web design, best practices, design principles, conversion principles, and of course, the majority of my solo episodes and interviews up to this point have been in and around the business side of starting and building your web design business. But one thing that I realized that we have not touched on yet is our health, and more importantly, our physical health, because this is something me and my family are really taking seriously this year. And I'm not like terribly out of shape or anything, but I've definitely got some what I like to call web design pudge. And this is something that I realized I've kind of let my health become not as big of a priority over the last couple of years. And I personally can make all the excuses I want. I have 2 baby girls, I have a busy life, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's all excuses. One of my challenges for this year is health, and particularly my physical health. So what I wanted to do was to have somebody on the podcast that can help us with this, because I know a lot of you have expressed ways to stay healthy and fit while working from home. And often, you know, as web designers, we go into what I like to call code mode, where we just hunch over and get down to business. And the next thing you know, your neck is killing you, your back is killing you, you just don't feel great. And I want to help you avoid that because I'm right in the thick of this with you. So in this episode, I've got a very special guest. This is Aoife McAuliffe, and she is a personal trainer and kind of a fitness guru. And we connected because we're in a podcasting group together. And I really just love her approach to health and fitness. Particularly, she works with, the majority of her clients right now are working from home. So she has a lot of strategic things to help people with staying balanced and fit in their home offices and working from home. So in this episode, we get into kind of 2 main areas: nutrition and fitness. And both of these areas are key to us living a balanced and healthy lifestyle while working from home. And Aoife was great. She empowers us in this talk with a lot of practical things we can do that you can apply right now. And the really cool thing is, I think you'll find this, her approach is just great. It's all about balance and moderation. She's not saying you can't eat foods you enjoy. She's not saying you have to work out 7 times a week and have these long workouts. And I totally agree with this mindset. It's about habitual things, just little changes, step by step, that will help you get to where you want to be and will really improve your quality of life. So I'm super excited to hear how this one helps you out. Now, before we dive into this one, this episode is brought to you by my website maintenance plan course. I found when I launched my website maintenance plan, it really ended the feast and famine game I was playing. And when you talk about health, both physically and mentally, that was a game changer for me, because up until that point, I had no recurring income in my web design business, and it was pretty stressful. I got to be honest, there was a lot of highs and lows. But once I started building recurring income through a maintenance plan, that really mentally helped reset my mind and made our income more stable, which allowed me to be more healthy and have more time to be able to focus and prioritize working out and doing some stuff to keep me strong and healthy. So I would love to help you do the same. If you have a maintenance plan, I want to help you level it up. And even if you don't have one and you're thinking about it, my website maintenance plan course will be a great resource for you, because it is my proven path to building and launching a recurring income website maintenance plan that you can add to your business right now. And if you don't have recurring income with a website maintenance plan, I'm telling you guys, you're missing out. You're missing out on such a great opportunity, and I want to help you with that. So that course is available right now. Check out the show notes for this page, and if you're interested, join today and let me know if you have any questions. And without further ado, here's Aoife. We're going to talk nutrition, we're going to talk fitness, and we're going to help you live a balanced and healthy lifestyle while you work from home and build some kick-ass websites. Let's dive in. Aoife, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
So we got connected. We're actually in a Facebook group together. And I saw what you were up to. And first of all, you have a new podcast, which is super cool. And I loved your approach to fitness. And particularly, I know a lot of your clients are working from home. And I wanted to pick your brain about work from home fitness because that's what I do. And a lot of my audience, particularly with the stuff we've seen with COVID, more and more people are working from home. For some people getting into web design, like my audience is, it can be a culture shock. So they might be used to getting out. Now they're like pivoting and trying to do stuff at home. So I'm really excited to pick your brain about this topic. Before we dive in though, if you can let everybody know where you're based out of and what you do exactly.
Yeah, so my name is Aoife. Well done on pronouncing that right first off the bat.
I had to listen. I listened to your podcast first to make sure I listened to it right before our call started, so I made sure I got it right.
Well done, good prep. So most people get that wrong. I'm Irish, as you might guess from the accent and the name, but I live in Brisbane, Australia. I've lived here for over 7 years now, and I work in the field of female health and fitness. So I work with women all over the world, helping them to lose weight and escape the restrictive diet mentality. And my main mission when I work with people is to teach them more about nutrition and teach them that you can eat all the foods you enjoy while still looking amazing and losing weight, and to also educate them more about training, because what I find is a lot of people tend to overdo it when it comes to training. When they want to get started with a new program, they go all out and train, 6 times a week, as a lot of people are probably doing now with the new year, and basically find that they can't sustain it. So they have to give up after a week or two, or they get injured or so on. And I'm all about making it more effective that you train, 3 to 4 times per week and perform each movement correctly and get amazing results like that. And like you said, a lot of my clients, they work from home, or they have been forced to work from home because of lockdown. So the majority of my training programs are based on home workouts as well. And it's really amazing the results you can achieve by training from home. And it doesn't mean doing, crazy long workouts either. Most of the workouts are 30 to 45 minutes. And I'm all about fitting that into your lifestyle and making health and fitness a sustainable habit that you can continue to build on long term.
Well, I love a lot of what you said there. First of all, the fact that you're big on, not killing yourself diet-wise, enjoying food. I think that's a big part. Of course, I love my pizza. We're a food family, but it's health is definitely something my wife and I are like really taking more serious. We have as I mentioned before we went live, I have 2 daughters, a 2-year-old and 1-year-old. Makes it tough for our time but it's definitely something where we're prioritizing this stuff more because I know how important it is. And I've found that I just don't feel as good as I used to when I'm not being active and doing a lot of this home workout stuff that I personally have kind of neglected over the past year or so that I'm really excited to get back on track. So this talk personally could not have come at a better time for me. So I'm super excited. I appreciate you also clarifying your accent, because I was going to ask about that because you didn't sound Australian, but I had a hint of Irish or UK in there. So I was very curious.
People get very confused by that because my accent has kind of dulled. My Irish accent has dulled a little bit, I guess, the longer I've been away. So I have a little bit of a mix of accents. Yeah, definitely Irish.
Well, I love that. Love it. So I would love to hear maybe just a summary of can you just give us a little backstory on your fitness journey? Because I know you have an interesting story. I mean, there's stories of people who lose 100 pounds. There's stories of people who are all over the spectrum. But I think what I like about you is that it's very habitual based and it's realistic. I love that approach because you're right. There are a lot of the fitness marketers out there who just seem to want to kill you, and it's just not sustainable. And as we all know as entrepreneurs, this applies to anything in business, if you do something that you just can't keep a sustainable pace at, you're never going to follow through. And I've seen the same thing with so many people who do these ridiculous diets. And what happens after 30 days, they're back to eating worse than they were previous to that. And they seem to overcompensate. And same thing for working out. Like you said, I've seen a lot of people who just don't stop. They don't give their body time to rest. They go too far into it. And it's just not sustainable. So I love that. But all that to say, I'd love to hear just a brief backstory on your fitness. Where did you come from and what inspired your fitness journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I wasn't actually sporty at all. I used to try to avoid doing PE in school, physical education. I used to hate that class, so I would always find an excuse not to do it. My family was quite sporty, however, but I really didn't get into the whole sporty side. And in my teens and when I went to uni, I found that, I wasn't able to stay as lean as I normally was, and was eating more junk food and so on. And kind of went through a period where like I was probably crash dieting a little bit, just because, as a young girl, like you really don't learn a lot about nutrition at that young age. And what you do learn is from the media and from magazines, I guess, back then, and seeing what celebrities are doing and so on. And it was all about, crazy diets, which is so unfortunate because, if you could just learn a bit more about proper nutrition, it's so much easier to maintain your weight and live a healthy lifestyle. But unfortunately, I went through a period of just, trying various different diets and nothing was really working. And then got into fitness as well and started going to the gym and made the mistake that you mentioned there, where I was just going to the gym 5 or 6 times a week, doing like an hour spin class every day, and basically just running myself into the ground and not seeing any results at all, but just feeling super tired and low energy and very demotivated because I wasn't able to sustain that level of fitness and level of adherence to trying to do such a crazy program. And luckily then, though, I at that point discovered CrossFit, where I first started doing strength training. And I found that made a massive difference. And that's why I'm a big advocate of lifting weights, and even with home workouts, just using what you have at home as resistance, because resistance training makes such a big impact to body composition, more so than doing any cardio. And the other thing then that adds to my journey, I guess, is I came to Australia as a backpacker 7.5 years ago. And as a backpacker, I was, living a crazy party lifestyle, I guess, back then, and just traveling around, not paying much attention to what I was eating, and definitely not training or going to the gym because I was doing so much traveling. And the crazy thing is I gained 10 kilos in my first year in Australia. And that was actually over a period of probably 3 or 4 months as well. So after that, I was really feeling like, okay, I need to do something about this. But I was in the position that a lot of my clients are in when they're starting out, where I just felt so lost. There was so many different programs that I could follow. I wanted to do home workouts because I didn't feel too confident going to the gym. At that point, I was also living in the countryside here, so I didn't have gym access anyway. And the easiest thing for me to do then was to go running, but I just wasn't enjoying it. And also I wasn't seeing it was making any difference. I was trying to do some home workouts, but I found that all the home workouts, they were very high intensity. So I was just really feeling very demotivated to do them because they were so difficult. And I would reach a point after, a week or two of doing them where I just couldn't kind of maintain that momentum or motivation to keep going. But then eventually I found a program that I could stick with and did that. And it was all home workouts, and lost a good bit of weight through healthy eating and doing home workouts at that point. But then I decided to educate myself more on nutrition and training because I found that it was something that I was really enjoying. And I was amazed to see that, I could make progress by training from home and just by cleaning up my diet and eating more healthily and avoiding processed foods, really. So I decided to look into nutrition and fitness a bit more. And that's where my passion for it all started. I studied my PT certification here in Australia. And then after doing that, I realized my main interest really was in nutrition. So I decided to study applied sports nutrition here as well. And then after that, started my business, which is mostly online. And then at that point, I did some PT face-to-face as well, where I would work with clients in a gym and then do a lot of nutrition work online. And my focus on nutrition really is educating my clients, teaching them about what's in the food they're eating and teaching them how to then eat those foods in the correct quantities in order to meet their goals. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit of a short background story, hopefully.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting to hear. I'm always curious about everyone's path to get to what they're interested in. So for you, It was traveling, and it was just a different lifestyle. It wasn't like you were morbidly obese and you had like, a massive life shift. But I think that's what's really interesting is that you were somebody who it maybe just wasn't at the forefront of your mind. But as we all know, sometimes the littlest things can spiral out of control, and a bad habit can really, really turn bad. And again, it's something that I know me and my family were really taking more seriously. We're not like terribly out of shape or anything, but I got a little web designer pudge, like I like to call it, and I just want to feel better like I did when I was more active and when I made it a priority. And to be honest, all entrepreneurs struggle with kind of just keeping physical activity on the side when there's so much work to be done. So that's a really big point too, is to really make it a priority. So I would love to focus on nutrition and diet. And then I also want to talk about exercises from home and training. So let's start with the diet stuff. And I think particularly when it comes to working from home, it's even harder because the fridge is right there. You can just zip over and get, for people who are big snackers, that's a really big problem. It's not too much of a culprit for me. I can generally do pretty good, although every once in a while I might snack a little more than I know I should or something like that. But that seems to be a big problem for people who work from home. So yeah, what are your thoughts on nutrition and how we can balance that, while being home a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a big thing. And it's a big thing now with more and more people working from home, because obviously when you're in an office, you don't have the fridge within easy reach at 24/7. So absolutely, it's something
you're also alone. You're alone at home too. So it can be like, you have to have some willpower. It's like, well, at work, maybe I don't want to chomp on all these M&Ms because everyone's going to see me, but no one's going to know at home. So it definitely has some willpower involved there.
Exactly. That's it. And the thing is, willpower is great, but I think it's something that people overestimate their ability to use willpower. Whereas what you want to do is try to not have to use willpower so much and just create other ways of creating a bit of friction between yourself and that temptation. So what I always advise my clients to do is make food less obvious and less accessible if you're working from home. So if there are certain foods that you'll tend to snack more on, either avoid buying them maybe if they're going to be a real temptation, or, if you are buying them and you say, you have to buy them for the family and the kids and so on, try to keep them out of sight. So put them in the top cupboard or at the back of the fridge. So that way, when you are looking for snacks, it's not to the forefront and you'll find something a little bit healthier and you can eat that. I would also then make it easier to choose healthy options. So obviously, meal prep is quite useful when we're working at an office, but I would say as well working from home, because you can help yourself make better food choices by having that available to you. It also saves you time during your workday. If you have a healthy lunch ready in the fridge and you can just grab that and go, and then you'll be less likely to be tempted by snack foods. And something I always advocate is trying to make your main meals more nutritious and filling, so you're less likely to snack. So if you were to, rather than eating 6 or 7 times a day and having lots of little snacks between meals, which is what I find the majority of people do, because they're attempting to eat less. So they minimize their main meals, but then they find themselves getting super hungry in between meals and they're snacking on little things here and there. And they're thinking that they're eating less, but all those snacks are probably 100, 150 calories each. And if you're having, 7 or 8 of those a day, that's an extra 700 to 1,000 calories that you're adding on without really realizing it. So making the main meals just more substantial and more nutritious, you'll find you're a lot fuller between meals. You're less likely to be thinking about food and wanting to snack. And then the other thing I think I mentioned already was just trying to not rely on willpower, because that's something you need to consciously develop. So you don't want to really put it to the test every single day by having trigger foods at home. So eliminating that daily fight and daily struggle of, will I, won't I, by keeping your fridge and your cupboards stocked with healthy foods rather than buying foods that will kind of trigger you to overeat. I think that's a really big one. Just try to stop buying them, or else buy them in portion controlled packs.
And it's so simple. The idea of just not making it like, don't put M&Ms right out front where you're going to see that before anything else. Because that is like, I'm pretty good with self-discipline and willpower, but there are some times where, like, if I just get a case of the munchies, if I find something like that, I might go for that. Whereas I kind of forgot that I had some apples in the fridge or something, or bananas or something that's a little more, definitely it's a good reminder just to make those things in the forefront, put those out there instead of the bad stuff. That's what a great, just simple task.
And another thing that
it's like
I
a
find,
mind hack.
Yeah, exactly. And another really good little mind hack is, if you find that you're snacking out of boredom, ask yourself, like, are you really actually hungry, or are you just looking for a distraction? Are you just, procrastinating maybe? Because if you're genuinely hungry, healthy food will seem appealing to you. So, thinking of something like, am I hungry right now? Do I want something like a salad or a bowl of vegetables? Does that seem appealing to me? If that doesn't seem appealing to you, you're probably not genuinely hungry. You're just looking for a distraction or procrastinating a certain task or something like that.
That's good. That's really good. It's funny. This reminds me of a funny meme my wife showed me recently. It was this girl at a grocery store, and she's like, "Hey, lettuce, do you want to come and die in the back of my fridge while I eat all the bad stuff in front?" And that's how I feel about some vegetables. We're like, "Ah, shit, dang it, I've spent all the money on this kale or something. I didn't even use it." That's great though. So just put it in the forefront, and I imagine planning for that too, right? I'm sure that comes into meal planning, but really planning to utilize all the healthy stuff that you have. I would imagine that's a good component too, right?
Absolutely. And with vegetables, like you said, like some people are not too keen on vegetables. So I think it's more about trying different types and finding the veggies that you enjoy, but also finding ways of sneaking them into your food, because you want to be eating more vegetables because that's going to fill you up. That's going to increase your fiber, which is fantastic for your overall health. And the majority of people aren't getting enough vegetables in on a daily basis because they maybe are buying veggies that they're, leaving in the fridge, like you said, or they just haven't found ones they enjoy. But what I would recommend, like a really simple hack is, say if you're making something like spaghetti bolognese, cooking some vegetables and blending them into the sauce. Really easy tip to get more veggies in that way. Or, when you're cooking your veggies, just find different seasonings you can add in, like, spices and herbs to add some flavor, or some like low calorie sauces. Tamari sauce is something I love, or just finding like a good recipe that you can follow that is vegetable based to add with your meals, and adding in like, say, a really nice salad, or, just finding a good recipe that you enjoy and you can recreate. I think is a really good way of upping your veggie content.
That's good. It kind of reminds me of what we're doing with our daughters, because they're 2 and 1 now, so they're eating more like real foods and stuff. And yeah, we're trying to figure out ways to sneak more veggies in. So we're kind of doing the same thing that we would do for our babies for us. Like I just had scrambled eggs with spinach earlier this week. Like just little, little stuff like that we're really trying to work on, which we're both pretty cool with veggies, but sometimes it's like, man, I don't want a salad. I want like something more substantial. So I love that idea of like really, sneaking those in if you can, and what you're down with. I think that's great.
Yeah. Adding good flavorings is important.
Yeah, and the flavorings. Yeah,
and flavor.
I know you've got some resources on your website too. Which
I've got a little meal prep recipe book in there as well. So that's on my website, Empowerher.fitness. So anyone can have a look on there and grab some recipes.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, because I didn't want to get too far into that, because I know that could take up a lot of time, and I know you've got a lot of those resources on your site. So, because I'm going to take a look at that. I'm very curious. I would like to ask you about the number of times you eat, though. So the way we do it is usually a pretty decent sized breakfast, which it's funny because most people in the corporate world eat no breakfast or very little breakfast, or it's like a donut or something. I've worked from home for a decade, so I'm very used to doing like eggs almost every morning, or we'll do avocado toast, or I love bagels. I mean, we'll do all kinds of stuff. And
I love bagels.
Oh gosh, bagels are so good. Dang it. Why are they so good? And then we'll always do like pancakes or French toast or something. But the thing that I've experienced is working from home, we'll often do bigger breakfasts and then regular sized dinners, which means lunch is very sporadic for us. Like sometimes we'll do leftovers, sometimes we'll do a small lunch. Every once in a while, if I end up eating later in the morning, sometimes I just don't eat lunch at all. And I try not to snack too much. Like today I had a little bit of yogurt, granola, and some banana. That was my lunch. What are your thoughts on the amount of times you eat a day? Because like you talked about in the beginning, there's so much information out there. I'm sure there's numerous studies on different kinds of benefits. What have you found to be effective? Are you a harsh 3 times, 3 meals a day kind of thing? Or do you think
I don't really like to set specific rules around food like that at all. Because I think everyone's different in the amount of times a day they want to eat. I think you ideally want to have at least 3 main meals and, try to limit the number of little meals, like I said earlier. So avoiding, going into the area of having, 6, 7, 8 meals a day where you're having, all those little snacks because we're going to count them as meals. I would say you're better off trying to have, 3 to 4 bigger main meals. And that will just prevent you having extra snacks throughout the day. But as well as that, the reason that I am an advocate of having 3 at least main meals is because you want to get enough protein in throughout the day. Protein is really important, especially if you're training in order to build and maintain lean muscle. It's also very satiating. So if you're having protein with your meal, you're going to feel fuller for longer. And then as we get older as well, we're more sensitive to muscle breakdown and sarcopenia, where we are losing some of our muscles. So as you get older, it's even more important to ensure that you're having protein with all of your meals. And in order to spike muscle protein synthesis, and that's the building up of muscle in our body, we need to be getting protein with each meal to a minimum of about 20 or 30 grams, which would be about, chicken breast. That'd be about 20 or 30 grams of protein, basically. Or, say having a tub of Greek yogurt with your breakfast. So in order to get sufficient protein throughout the day, you want to ideally break your food into about 3 to 4 meals just to space that out adequately.
That's great. That's great. I love that approach. Again, I love your mindset with that, to where it's not like you have to have exactly this. I think that's great.
I think it's important to listen to your body and listen to your hunger and fullness signals. And I think that's really important. You never want to force yourself to eat because you feel like you have to eat this massive meal. You want to listen to your body, be mindful of what you're eating, and stop eating when you're full, but then also be aware that, when you are hungry throughout the day, making sure that that's going to be a meal that you're having at that point rather than having snacks. And another thing to keep in mind as well with snacking and hunger throughout the day is ensuring that you're properly hydrated. I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into, especially with working from home. You may be less likely to have like a water cooler nearby or have water on your desk. So just making sure you're getting that 3 liters of water in throughout the day. So having, a glass of water filled up on your desk at all times and just trying to drink that throughout the day. And oftentimes when we're hungry, we're actually thirsty. So having a glass of water when you do feel the urge to snack, you might feel that satisfies you because you're actually thirsty.
That's great. You just inspired me to take a drink right there. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things. That's one of the biggest things I've learned as an entrepreneur working from home, is to just drink water constantly. And that actually really has helped me, because I was a little worse years ago with snacking, and then it really helped me just staying more full, just being hydrated. Like you said, it is interesting how it's different. I know sometimes if I do a lot of calls or if I do some course stuff, and then I didn't drink that much, sometimes I'll do that same thing. I feel a little hungry, but often it's just because I'm not as regular with my drinking. So that's a great tip. What a great tip.
Yeah, especially with you, if you're talking a lot for your job, you're going to become a bit more dehydrated than you normally would then. So even more important to be sure that you're drinking water throughout the day.
That's great. That's great. I think one last thought I had on this before we move on to training and exercise and stuff is, one thing that I did that really helped, that hopefully encourages everybody, is we were talking about options earlier. I was notorious for eating like a 12-year-old several years ago. Like my wife and I joke about it. Like we're 12, we'd get like peanut butter and jellies and Cheetos and chips or something. And then what we just started doing was, every once in a while we'll do that if we're in a pinch, but we've tried to have more healthy options for lunches if we're not, going to do a big meal. Because it's easy to whip together a PB&J. It's not always easy to put a big meal together for lunch with like chicken and rice that can be fairly easy. But often what we'll do is we'll just do the yogurt, granola, or banana or something like that, to where it's a decent, healthy lunch, and it's big enough to hold us over to dinner. But it kind of alleviates that, like, well, I'm just going to make a PB&J because there's nothing else. So
well, I'm all about like making healthy eating quick, easy, and accessible. Because I'm actually not a big fan of cooking, to be honest. It's crazy considering I'm a nutritionist. But I just try to like make healthy meals as easy as possible. So for lunch, for example, if you're stuck for time or you're just not wanting to have to cook up some food in the middle of the day, you can simply have like a sandwich with wholemeal bread or a wholemeal bread roll, some chicken, beef, or, tinned fish like tinned salmon, tinned tuna, and a salad mix. And then add some toppings on that. Really easy. Or another option is maybe cooking up like a frittata or a big omelette at the beginning of the week, chopping that up and putting it in the fridge. And then you have that as your go-to lunches throughout the week. That's one of the recipes I have in my meal prep book. And it's so handy just to have that available. And just having, like you said, options available to you, and just having things in the fridge that are quick and easy to go. Another really good go-to option is like for a super easy lunch. So say you have some frozen vegetables in the freezer, you have some tinned fish like tinned sardines, tinned salmon, tinned tuna, or whatever, and you have those pre-cooked rice like your pre-cooked
yeah.
whole grain rice or basmati rice. So you microwave your rice and your veggies, add in your tinned salmon, and just add in some salt and spices. And it's a really quick, easy go-to meal. Add in some sort of dressing if you like there, or some sriracha sauce, and you've got a meal in like 5 minutes.
That's great. What great advice. Well, this has been great so far, Aoife. Let's transition to some fitness stuff.
Yeah.
Particularly working from home. So one of the biggest aversions that people have that I've often heard is, I don't, if I can't go to the gym, I don't know what to get. I don't know what exercises I can do. I am fascinated with how much body weight exercises can do for you and how you can technically get by without having a lick of equipment. I mean, it's push-ups and some body squats and stuff. I try to keep up with that. That really has gone a long way for me, although I do have some equipment. Downstairs, I have a little mat with some dumbbells and a pull-up, just some basic stuff. And I do have one of the door pull-up bars that I'll bust out.
Oh, yeah, they're so good.
What would you recommend? Let's start with some of the type of equipment that is practical and whether, what we need. And then I'd love to talk about some home-based exercises that you recommend for everybody, because I'm sure there's just some general good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as I said, I would say over 50% of my clients at the moment are training from home. And especially for anybody who's a beginner or hasn't exercised in a while, you'll get amazing results training from home, and you don't need a lot of equipment at all. All I recommend getting is either a set of adjustable dumbbells or an adjustable barbell. So the majority of my clients, they'll have 2 adjustable dumbbells with weights that will go up to 10 kilos on each side, which is about 20 pounds for you. And that will get you through like 6 months of workouts, really. One of my clients, that's all she had. And actually at the very beginning of starting working with me, she didn't even have equipment. So we did body weight first, but you very quickly adapt to body weight exercise, and you want to be able to change things up a little bit and add some more variety into your program as well. So we added in some resistance with what she had around the house, which was 2 big bottles of disinfectant that weighed about 5 liters.
There you go.
So those are her weights for, I would say, 2 or 3 months until weights became available again, because that was the beginning of lockdown. And she made amazing progress. Over the course of 6 months working with me, she lost 16 kilos. And that was body weight exercises at first, then adding in those 5-liter containers as weights, and then bringing in adjustable dumbbells after that. So you really don't need a lot. And, if you have a pull-up bar, like you said, doorway pull-up bar, super handy as well to use, but that's basically all you need.
What about bands? What are your thoughts on bands? I know a lot of people like using bands for all sorts of, whether it's bicep or resistant workouts. I know you can do a lot with core and leg.
Yeah, bands are quite helpful just for some accessory movements. They wouldn't be a foundation for your program because they're not going to add enough resistance for you to progress over time. And the important thing with training is understanding that progressive overload is the reason that you'll get stronger, build muscle, and get leaner. And what that basically means is you need to be improving each week. So you need to be getting stronger each week. And unfortunately, with resistance bands, we can't really judge the resistance and we can't change the resistance too much. However, with dumbbells, we can obviously increase the weight. If we can't increase the weight with the dumbbells, we can just add more reps. But we still have a good amount of resistance there. Whereas with the bands, the resistance is that little bit less normally.
Yeah. Now, I know you work with mostly girls, but for everybody and guys included, are there some general exercises, whether it's push-ups, body squats? Is there some stuff that you recommend to pretty much everybody for just good overall fitness that we can do easily at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, squats, really versatile and useful movement to do. And just making sure with squats, you're trying to get that full range of motion. And what I find with a lot of people is they struggle with squats initially because they don't have that flexibility. So sometimes you might have to try squatting with your heels elevated and just have like a little book under your heels just to make sure you're getting below parallel in your squat. That's quite important because when you get full range in a movement, you're going to find that it has a lot more effectiveness just because you're using the entire muscle group. Push-ups are great as well. Step-ups, lunges, split squats, all of these sort of things. They're really good exercises to be doing at home. But obviously, the main and most important thing, I think, is just making sure that you're doing the exercise correctly and that you're doing it to full range of motion and that you're not rushing through the exercises. I think an unfortunate thing that's happened with the influx of HIIT training, I guess, in recent years, is people feel like they have to get their heart rate up when they're doing every type of training. Whereas with resistance-based training, it's more important that you'll slow the exercise down, create that mind-muscle connection, and ensure that you're using the correct muscle groups and getting full range of motion. And not only will that help you to get better results from doing the exercise, but it'll also prevent injury as well.
That's a great tip. I know I've tended to work out a lot in seasons. There are just seasons where I would really, be into it and then back off for a little bit. But the times that I kind of caught myself with that was like, let's say I was doing 50 reps or 25 push-ups, let's say, for example. Often I would like lose my form a little bit just to get to the 25. Whereas I kind of learned, you know what? It's almost more beneficial just to do 15 in really good form than try to kill yourself to hit 25. And that's a mental barrier. Sometimes numbers, when numbers come into play with diet or exercise, that's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, I always say to my clients when they are training from home and we're doing workouts where they're trying to do more reps, it's about doing as many reps as you can with perfect form. And once you get to that point where you feel like your form is breaking down, you couldn't do another rep with perfect form, that's your max. And you want to stop there and you just want to try to improve on that number then the following week.
And what about like, instead of doing, like if I were to say, okay, I'm going to do 35 push-ups. Instead of that, what if I said I'm going to do as many push-ups as I can in a minute or a minute and a half? Is that an approach that's worthwhile looking into that you would recommend as opposed to striving for a certain number all the time?
I would say that's two different types of training. You could change things up and you could go for more time-based training if you wanted to do a certain number in that period of time. That'd be more of your HIIT style training. So you could then bring that in every now and again. But I think the main area that you want to focus on is just improving your overall strength over time, and that's done by increasing reps or increasing range of motion or improving your form on your exercises.
Gotcha. I would love to talk about cardio and then flexibility. So with cardio, you mentioned that earlier. I think more and more people seem to have found out that there's some myths when it comes to cardio. Now, I enjoy running. I really enjoy running. I meant to tell you earlier too, what's really interesting about the time of this conversation is I'm at the tail end of recovering from knee surgery. So I just had a knee surgery 3 weeks ago we're recording this. So I'm just like really working on my flexibility, and I'm in PT twice a week right now. What I've found is that my quad has like completely there's like nothing there in my leg right now. So I'm kind of reworking that. And cardio is really interesting because what are your thoughts on? I mean, I know it's important, and I love running and I love taking walks, but would you say that body weight and some strength training is equal or more important when it comes to weight loss and just overall health? Because I think a lot of people seem to just kill themselves with running or some of this cardio stuff. And it makes me wonder, is it worth all that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think cardio is great if you enjoy it, but I think as a weight loss tool, it's definitely not the best investment of your time, because basically what cardio does is it burns calories, burns energy. And the amount of energy you're going to burn through doing, say, 30 minutes of running is not as much as most people think it is. And you could actually deduct that same amount of energy from your nutrition, and you save yourself all the time of having to do cardio throughout the week. And if it's something that you enjoy doing and you feel like it's a stress release and so on, great, by all means, go ahead and do it. But understand that your time is probably better invested, first of all, by looking at your diet and understanding that you need to have a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. A deficit can be created through food more easily than through cardio. And then the second most important thing when it comes to weight loss is increasing our lean muscle mass. And we don't do that by doing cardio. We need to actually be doing some form of resistance training in order to do that, because when we are losing weight and we're in a calorie deficit, we're losing fat, and we can optimize the fat loss by actually training with resistance, because when we lose weight, we lose fat and we lose muscle. This is the problem. We can't lose one independent of the other. However, we can help ourselves to prioritize more fat loss than muscle loss by increasing our muscle increasing our strength basically throughout the process. And that's done with resistance training, but then by also prioritizing protein in our diet and making sure that we're getting enough protein in order for our muscles to be able to rebuild and repair. And what that means then is at the end of your diet, when you've lost fat, you're going to look a lot more leaner and more toned because you have built some muscle underneath that fat that you're losing.
That's great. Yeah, that's something back in 2012, I ran a half marathon, which is the most I've ran. And I remember like training for that. It was my mindset for some reason up to that point was weights and lifting was muscle, run was just fat loss. I didn't really think about lifting weights as being weight loss in a lot of ways and shedding off the fat and stuff. And so I noticed a lot of like physically I trimmed up and stuff, but I definitely lost a lot of muscle tone because I was running so much and I wasn't lifting as much. And so it was really interesting. That experience kind of taught me like, okay, that's like, I like having a balance of everything, of a little bit of cardio, but I'm really taking the weight training stuff more seriously. And like I said, the recovery I'm going through right now after having knee surgery is that I have to do this. Like this is the recovery, particularly for my legs and strengthening that and those muscles. That is what I have to do right now. So it's been a really interesting eye-opening thing. And the next thing I want to talk about is flexibility. And working from home, this is what we all struggle with because particularly as web designers, we're in front of the screen constantly. We often go to what I like to call code mode, which is where you just kind of hunch over and you're just like focused on the screen. And after an hour, your neck's killing you, your back's killing you, posture is terrible. Mobility and flexibility seem to be the biggest culprit in my industry of web design. So what are some recommendations? Do you recommend? I mean, I'm sure getting up out of your seat, frequently and just doing little walks and stuff like that's huge. But your thoughts on flexibility and mobility. What are some things that we could do, particularly for my audience as web designers? Is it like scheduled or, fairly routine stretching times? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so on the flexibility side of things, I think there are first a few misconceptions there about, the importance of being really flexible or really mobile. Obviously, flexibility is definitely important, but there is a correlation and I guess a relationship between strength and flexibility. We need strength as well, along with flexibility, because a muscle that is, really stretched often isn't very strong. So we need to ensure that we're strengthening our muscles as well as doing some mobility work. So with, people that have desk jobs, you want to first of all ensure that you're doing some exercises to strengthen your upper back and strengthen your core when you're in that seated posture the whole time. And that will help you just to build a better posture while you're sitting, and then lessen the need for so much flexibility and mobility work, because you don't want to overdo it with that sort of thing either. So I think you need to do both. It's really important. So if you want to talk a little bit about, what exercises and so on we can do and go through that.
Absolutely. I was just thinking, it's funny how like doing some core work, it's interesting. It's like with the body, it seems like what you would think would not be related at all is exactly what you need. Like in that case, and I've experienced this because I tend to slouch, and I've really over the past couple of years thought more and more about my posture, and I've experimented with all kinds of different things. And a lot of people I've talked to have said that like often it's your chest and your core that's going to help, straighten out your back. It's not necessarily just sitting up like that. So yeah, I'm all ears for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even when you think about like, say Pilates, for example, a lot of the movements they do are strengthening exercises for your core as well as strengthening your back. And I'm all about including those sort of exercises for my clients that work from home, just because having stronger muscles in your back and in your core is going to help you to maintain better posture, and then, prevent that, round your shoulders, and just help you sit a lot better at your desk and feel a lot better in yourself when you're working. So yeah, a few exercises that I think would be really useful are, so obviously talking about stretching, we want to stretch the upper back and our lats. So a really handy stretch for that. And if you feel like your upper back and your neck are quite tight, you probably want to, if you have a foam roller, a great stretch and a super easy one to do is just to lie on the foam roller so it's along your spine basically. And then putting your arms out to the side opens up your chest completely. And that's just a really good release for your chest muscles if you feel like your shoulders are feeling quite rounded. Another one to do if you don't have a foam roller is called a kneeling thoracic extension. So basically getting your elbows and placing them up on a bench about shoulder width apart, and then kneeling on the ground in front of the bench or in front of your couch even would work. And then allowing your head to drop between your arms, and that will stretch out your upper back, and just holding that stretch for about 30 seconds or holding it for as long as you want and then coming back up and going back into the stretch again. That will give you a really good stretch in your lats and in your mid back as well.
That's great.
And then,
good. I was just going to say, good job of explaining that too without it being visual. This is going to be on YouTube as well, but for people who are just listening, that was well done to be able to.
I know that was a test of, I was trying to figure out how best to explain it and visualize it.
That's a good job.
Another one I was thinking then would be just for back strength. And I'm just going to go through these two. I don't want to overload everyone with too many ideas of what to do, but if you just were to incorporate that stretch and then a strengthening exercise. So this one is a prone snow angel, we'll call it. So really easy to imagine what a snow angel looks like. You know, you're lying on your back on the ground, whereas we're going to flip that over. So you're lying on your chest. And what you want to do then is lift your shoulders off the ground and then start with your hands reaching up overhead and bring them all the way around to your side while keeping them off the ground the entire time. And you want to do about 10 of those. And they are so tough, let me tell you. I am doing them at the gym at the moment with just tiny weights, and your whole back just gets entirely exhausted. So that's a really good one that you can do without any equipment whatsoever as well. And it just helps to strengthen the muscles that stabilize your shoulder.
Gotcha. Well, that's really good. That's some good stuff because like you said, and it's a good reminder that flexibility obviously is super important, but there's that component of strength in there too. I like the analogy you said, like if you have a muscle that's super stretched, it might not be, strong at all to be able to support your weight, which could be equally detrimental. So that's huge. So on posture, let's hit on posture real quick because that's the biggie. This is, like I said, it's the thing that I've really taken more seriously. I didn't realize it until I recorded one of my calls for one of my courses. And when I watched it back, I was realizing I was like hunched over while I was on the phone because I just didn't think about it. Like I said, I just kind of go into it and just naturally just kind of hunch over. So really, really been more proactive on that. One thing that I did, and I'd love to hear some of your tips for posture working from home. One thing that I did was raise up my screen to where I don't look down at my screen. I look parallel with it. That's really helped. I dropped my seat. I used to sit higher, but now I drop my seat almost as low as it goes. So I'm forced to like kind of stay up because otherwise I used to have my screen a little lower. And that's the big problem with coffee shop work is as much as I love working from a coffee shop, you end up slouching.
You can never get the seat right.
Yeah. Even if you have one of the elevators, it's still, you end up slouching a little bit. So at home, at least, I definitely, that's one thing that's really helped. A good seat is, I'm definitely due for a new seat. I know there's been a lot of studies on that. But that's been the biggest one for me is just having the computer screen at eye level and not to where you have to look down at it. Any other tips that you've seen to help with working from home with posture?
That's great, as you said. And like just even Googling ergonomic desk setup and just checking those points yourself. There are a few points you can go through. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but if you Google ergonomic desk assessment, you can assess your desk setup and just check that, your screen is at eye level, check where your elbows are in relation to your desk and so on, and just make sure that that's all set up to optimize good posture. Another great idea and something that I really want to start doing is using a standing desk, or even getting, an attachment that you can put on your desk where you can actually just move it up and down so you can stand for some of the day, because as we all know, sitting is just really detrimental to our overall health, and it tightens our hip flexors as well. So that's where we get a lot of that tightness there from sitting all day. So if you can get a standing desk or get an attachment that can move your computer up and stand for some of the day, that will be really, really useful as well. If you can't do that, a really great alternative option is to try to get up and about more. And a way that I do this is I use an app called the Pomodoro timer. And you can just Google it and you can have it then on your computer the whole time. And it gives you 25 minutes of focused work and 5 minutes break. So every hour, then you're going to be getting up twice. And that gives you time to, get up, make a coffee, walk around, get some steps in throughout the day, and get a little stretch and then get back to your desk.
It's funny you mentioned that because the episode before you, is the episode I mentioned to you earlier before we went live about time management tips. And we talked about that, the Pomodoro technique, where we talked
so
about
awesome.
it in more of a sense of like tasks, like spend 25 minutes on this, take a break. But yeah, absolutely. That's a great reminder that we can do it for physical stuff as well. I know for me, I don't sit at my desk usually for longer than an hour and a half to 2 hours max. I generally get up, and it helps having a busy family around because I'll often be up, and I try to always walk my dog at least once or twice a day. So those things have really helped. But I love that idea of like almost having a reminder, like at least get up, do something, get up and touch your toes for a second, or just get out of your seat. Now I know there have been a lot of studies more recently showing negative impacts if you stand all day as well. So I know that has to be done in balance if you get a stand-up desk to where, I know there's a lot of, if you just stand
I think
still.
It's an adjustment. Yeah, it's definitely an adjustment. If you're sitting all day and you go straight to standing, it's probably not going to be really easy for you to do. And I think the problems that come with that are more to do with probably having a weaker core. And that's why that's quite important, to be doing some core strengthening. And that's something I didn't mention when I was talking about, those exercises you could do. But if we were to have a list of 4 and we were to have, so first of all, that thoracic extension that I said, then the prone angels. The next one I would say is a plank. Really easy one to do from home, just on your elbows, 30 to 60 seconds. And then the final one I would add in there would be some glute bridges. So lying on your back on the ground, knees bent and feet up near your bum. And then just lifting your bum, and that strengthens your glutes. So those would be a really good little thing to tie into your day. And you could do that when you have your Pomodoro timer on as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I might have you send me a list of those if you would after this. I'll put them in the show notes. A little Aoife home workout for web designers tip there.
Exactly. A little strengthening routine.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really good because posture. That's the big one. The slouching is. And it's just so easy to do, and we don't even know it. I think that's what's even harder is you don't even realize this stuff wasn't even on my radar years ago when I got going in web design. And I know we're talking about stuff that all people on a computer deal with, but there definitely is it's a whole different element, particularly when you're working from home, because if you're in a corporate setting, often you'll be getting up, you'll go to meetings or you'll go to lunch with people or you'll go and chat somewhere. Whereas at home, you can very easily just sit in the same spot for 6-7 hours and not move, which is really, it's bad for your mindset. And obviously it's terrible physically. So that's a great reminder just to get up and do something. Even I imagine if it's pretty small, just getting up and going and get a drink of water and coming back is better than sitting for 3 hours straight.
And then you're getting your water consumption up as well. So, it's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I think the 2 biggest things people can do for their posture really would be, first of all, just making sure your desk is ergonomically set up well, you have a good chair. And then the second thing, getting up and about throughout the day and trying to have breaks, at least once an hour where you stand up and move about, even if it just means standing at your desk and doing a little stretch.
Yeah. And that's great. Yeah, I know it's because I have a standing desk in the corner. The only problem I had with that is it didn't raise up high enough to where if my computer's on there, I end up standing and slouching to get down to the computer. So even with a razor, I had something that raised the computer up, but I still found myself kind of slouching while standing up. So I'm not sure what to do about that. I'd probably have to
get a shoebox.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to just keep on stacking shoe boxes up till it gets to eye height. Yeah. So I do more sitting generally in my office, but then I do constantly now. So yeah. Well, that's been great. This has been really good, Aoife. I feel like we've covered a lot. We covered diet, nutrition, particularly combating snacking, which was huge for all of us working from home. It's reassuring to know that we really don't need much of anything as far as equipment. There's obviously a lot we can do with body weight, but then just some dumbbells and some basic stuff, like you said, is huge. We don't need to, have a complete full gym with a rack of weights that go up to 100 pounds or whatever necessarily. Exactly. It's not, when I think about home gym, that's often what I think of, but
I'm all about minimalism, in my approach to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about flexibility and being mobile and all that, but also with training and strength training and how important that is as a big component of all this. And obviously this is all going to help with posture and some of the things we cover there. So this was great. This really gives me a good framework, and I'm sure everyone appreciates hearing this as we're, still new in the year, because this is when a lot of people are taking this stuff seriously. And like I said, I know we are as a family, and as I'm recovering, this has been a good way. It's not a wake up call, but this has just been a good like reminder that I have personally, and I'm just speaking out loud personally, I have to make health and my fitness a priority for everything, for my family, for my business, for everyone. Like it's just so crucial. It really needs to be a priority. I guess the last thing I want to ask you is, do you have any sort of ending thought? I mean, I know everyone's at different places. Some people might feel a little intimidated about this. What would you, I guess that's actually a question I'd like to pose to you is, what would you say to somebody who maybe hasn't taken this seriously at all over the past handful of years and has a long way to go? Where would you say that they should start?
I would say just start with where you're at. The biggest trap most people fall into is feeling like they can't get started because their fitness level isn't good enough yet. And it's something I actually talked about one of my clients with recently for the podcast, where she said she procrastinated on reaching out to me for 6 months because she felt like she wasn't fit enough to have a coach yet. And I was like, you don't have to wait until you're fit to have a coach. You want to get a coach when you're starting out so that you're making the most of your time and you're getting the most out of what you're doing, rather than doing all the wrong things or, jumping from one program to the next over a period of, 6 to 12 months and making very little progress. Why not reach out to somebody who can help you start where you're at now and build upon that over time? And I'm really all about, implementing small changes rather than overhauling your entire diet or lifestyle. I'm very much of the mindset that fitness should be something that fits into your life as it is now, so that you can build habits that you can maintain long term, because there's no point in trying to completely change the way you do everything and then feel so overwhelmed that you just cannot continue doing it. I'm more interested in creating small changes and small habits that will stick for you long term.
Yes, I love it. What a great message to end off of. I'm so glad you phrased it like that. I love it. Where can my audience find more about you and find out more about some of the free resources you have? And even if somebody's interested in working with you, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.empowerher.fitness. And you can find me on Instagram at Empowerher.fitness for my podcast. And that's linked to my personal fitness Instagram page as well, which is at actively Aoife. A little bit trickier to find because Aoife is Aoife.
I'll have it in the show notes for sure. Yeah, I'm so glad I listened to the pronunciation before I got on with you, because I would have called you.
I appreciate that.
Aoife is what I was.
Oh my goodness, I get that so often.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm well used to explaining my name.
Gotcha. Well, I'll have all that linked in the show notes, and I'll definitely recommend that people check out your podcast in particular. I know you're new in the game, but it's a really great show, and I'm super excited about the difference you're making. And this was great. Thanks so much, Aoife, for coming on, for sharing your expertise. I hope you had a good time, and really looking forward to staying in touch with you here.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.